This is Alexa Linton, and you're listening to the Whole Horse Podcast. I'm coming to you from the Cowichan Valley on beautiful Vancouver Island in Canada, and I'm excited to be bringing amazing instructors from around the world to share their knowledge about all the ways that we can keep ourselves and our horses well and happy, and about some of the cutting edge techniques, training, and different aspects that are coming into the horse industry and changing it from within. I'm so excited you're here, and I'm excited about the times that we live in and the shifts that are happening in the horse industry before our eyes. Let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome. It's Alexa Linton here with the Whole Horse Podcast, and I'm very excited to be actually sitting with my next guest. She lives literally just down the road from me. I'm very blessed to be surrounded by amazing horse people in the Cowichan Valley. Michelle Atterby is here, and she has been training and specializing in equine behavior. And for me, this is sort of a new thing for me. I don't actually know a lot about this topic. So I'm very excited that Michelle is here to share more with us about this. So Michelle, welcome.
Thanks, Alexa. It's so great to be here.
Thanks for driving over.
All the way down the road.
Right. So tell us a little bit more. I mean, as I say, I'm very curious. This is a new region of study for me as well. Tell us a little bit more about what you've been up to.
Yeah. So equine behavior is really a new a path of approaching training and how we house our horses, how we support our horses, supporting the horse-human relationship. So we look at it through the lens of science. And in that process, it's really based in a foundation of operant and classical learning.
So I remember those words from university.
Do you remember that?
I do.
So I want to talk a little bit about that. But basically what an equine behaviorist does is they specialize in the behavior of horses related to behavior problems and training. And they work to enrich both the horse's well-being, the relationship between the horse and the human. And it can be anywhere from environmental enrichment.
Okay.
Changing how we actually house our horses. We
that's
really
a big
need
one.
to. It is a really big one, and we need to start considering different options for our horses so they can express their own species-specific behavior.
Oh my gosh, we see that so much with these tiny paddocks and small barns and electric fencing. And
locked in their stalls.
Yep, absolutely. And separated.
Restricted meals and no socialization.
Yeah, of course.
So it's really, having a look through the lens of the horse.
Okay.
And then how does that relate into the horse-human relationship?
I think Riley just farted. Sorry. This is the trials of coming to my house to do the interview.
No filters here, folks. No filters.
No filters. At least you can't smell it. You're safe out there.
Thanks, Riley. Keep us back on track.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that.
What was I saying?
Environments and, looking at the real...
Yeah, so how do we also enrich training programs? So your horse becomes more enthusiastic.
Oh my gosh,
about
right?
wanting to be ridden.
Yes.
About groundwork.
Totally. I mean, how many people do they go out in the paddock and with their halter and their horse just turns around and goes the other way?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. What do you think it would be like if your horse is all lined up at the fence and were nickering to come out and play with you?
And how do I think that maybe your horses do that.
My horses do that. Literally, when I walk out there, they just all come to attention. They all start nickering and line up to play.
Wow. That's really cool.
So it's really about playing and shifting our idea of what training is to games. Playful games. Yeah. Where we can support our horses to express themselves.
Oh, I love that.
It's
wow.
so much fun.
Yeah,
So
I
much
bet.
fun.
I mean, gamifying anything, even for us as humans, right?
Yep.
We know how much that allows behaviors and learning to stick when we create,
Yes.
gamification in any type of adaptation, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And there's so much research now on the neuroscience of play
Mm-hmm.
in all mammals
Absolutely.
and the importance of that for learning.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit more. So Michelle was telling me all these amazing words before we started, and I was like, oh, I want to learn about that. One of the things you talked about was learning theory, and I'm not even sure what that is. You might have had a couple other things you wanted to go into, but
Yeah. So I thought I'd go over a few basic concepts.
Awesome. Let's do it.
So operant conditioning.
Yes.
Primary reinforcement, conditioned reinforcers, bridging stimulus, targeting, successive approximation, and shaping. So
Wow.
I thought maybe I'd go through
Let's
each
do
one
that.
of those.
Absolutely. Do you see the blank look on my face? I'm like, yeah, let's learn.
What do those things mean? Why do they matter?
Yeah.
And how do we apply them?
Let's do it. Okay.
Okay. So operant conditioning is a way of learning in which the likelihood of a behavior either increases or decreases by the consequences that follow that behavior.
Okay.
So the chance of a horse repeating a desired behavior
Mm-hmm.
is contingent on what happens immediately after the behavior.
Right.
Pretty straightforward,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's either going to increase or it's going to decrease. So for example,
Mm-hmm.
if I ask my horse to stand stationary at a mounting block so I can mount, she completes the behavior by standing stationary, and I can respond with consequence to that particular action. So the consequence offer depends on whether I want the behavior to increase or decrease.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And naturally I want her to stand still.
Yeah.
So with a stationary behavior to repeat itself, the consequence must be positively reinforcing to the horse.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I start pulling on the reins and creating pressure and discomfort in her mouth, if I've got a bit, chances of her repeating that behavior are going to decline.
Right.
She's more likely going to want to leave the mounting block.
So what I'm hearing too is that we actually probably inadvertently create behavior in our horses. Hey?
Oh my God, you just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time we are inadvertently teaching our horses. And it is amazing on what they pick up on in our body language, in our actions, and I believe even the way we think, because we're emitting that intention all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They pick up on that, and they will behave with what they believe is going to be reinforcing for them.
Yeah.
So here's another example. You're walking into a barn, your horses are kicking the stall doors,
Yeah.
You go to throw them hay.
Right.
What have you just taught them? You've literally just taught them that kicking your store door will get you hay.
Totally. Yeah. And it's a very effective way to get you hay.
Absolutely effective way.
But
But we don't even think
Totally.
about those associations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what happens the next day? Your horse kicks the door, you throw more hay.
Yeah. Because you're like, oh, this will at least keep them quiet
right.
for a little while.
Right.
Right.
So those are the associations, and that's how learning theory
Wow.
really works.
Absolutely.
So more effectively would be you walk in the barn, your horse is kicking, you wait until the horse doesn't kick.
Mm-hmm.
Then you give them the hay.
Yeah.
So you just taught them when all 4 feet are on the ground, that's when you get reinforced.
Yeah. Amazing.
It really makes sense. However, we overlook these things all the time.
Well, I could see that. I mean, even at the mounting block, how often, I mean, with that example, you know, and I'm sure I probably do this with Diva, where it's like, you know, without really praising, because she's really good at standing still at the mounting block. But I definitely want to incorporate this, because one of the things I notice she does is that as soon as I do get on, she's like walking.
Walking away.
Right.
Right.
And that's been sort of one of our things for a long time. So I'm like, how do I apply that into, you know, her feeling good about just staying still rather than, you know, her walking away and me, you know, hey, you know, trying to gather myself up.
Right.
And, you know, so that's great. So I'm assuming that this really helps with people actually being much safer with their horses in the long run.
Completely much safer with their horses. And having their horses in a partnership where there is two-way communication happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we understand learning theory and how our horse operates in their environment, the more we can support them positively, as opposed to resorting to pressure and punishment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there's tons of different primary reinforcers.
Okay.
Lots of different primary reinforcers. Touch, tactile, is a primary reinforcer, but not for all horses.
No, I was going to say that's not necessarily a general rule. Yeah.
But food is.
Yes.
Food is a primary reinforcer. And that usually trumps all other reinforcers.
Yes, especially the right kind of food.
Right. Yeah. Right. And that doesn't mean, you know, you have to get your pockets full of food and this is how, you know, we pursue training or teaching. It doesn't mean that, but because you have to set some strict rules in place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of it depends on, you know, your history with your horse, your relationship with your horse, how your horse has been trained in the past, how his current environment is set up. There's so many variables that are important to consider if you're going to choose food as a reinforcer.
Yeah, I could see that.
Other types of reinforcers could be getting out of the stall, you know, leaving the stall and going to a paddock.
Absolutely. It's someplace they really like going.
Yeah.
An activity they really like doing.
Absolutely. So different activities that, or toys, or company with another horse. Those are all important reinforcers.
Absolutely.
So now here's where learning theory gets a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
When we need to understand how praise and encouragement works in order to create behavior change. So that's where conditioned reinforcers come in. So a conditioned reinforcer is any stimulus that has acquired a reinforcing value through the paired association of a primary reinforcer. Okay, so let me break that down.
Break that down.
So we'll say that I'm going to use food as a reinforcer, and I want to pair that with something else that will predict food is coming.
I think Riley knows we're talking about food.
Hey, buddy. You're coming to say hi. You want to join in the conversation? Yeah.
Okay, so to say that again, I was getting licked like crazy.
I know, now I
am. For anybody that doesn't know, I basically have a horse that lives in the house. He's a wolfhound,
little Shetland pony
cross, and he loves to lick faces. This is Riley hanging out here
on my lap now.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did I just say? Well, we don't have to repeat it because it's already on tape.
Yeah.
So a conditioned reinforcer predicts the primary reinforcer to come.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a bridge stimulus.
Right.
So the moment your horse is doing the behavior that you want, you can create an audible sound.
So this is
or
like
a word.
This is like a click, for example.
Could be,
but it could be a lot of other things.
Many other things.
Okay.
Could be a whistle. Could be the word good. Could be the word yes. Could be a hand clap. Could be anything that is distinctive in the environment and different.
Got it.
You know, so if we're using a click, that's distinctive in the environment, and it doesn't get lost in conversation.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so that allows us to mark the exact moment that the behavior we want is being performed, and gives us enough time then to hand over the primary reinforcer.
Yeah, it gives some space.
It gives some space.
Yeah.
It gives a few seconds in time between, yes, what you just did there, I love it.
Yeah.
And let me reward you and reinforce you for that correct behavior.
Got it. Yes.
And now you have a horse who is engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And you're eliciting curiosity, and you're eliciting a seeking system. And there's lots of neuroscience that's been done on this. Tons of studies that's been done on this.
Okay, so seeking system. Go
The
into
seeking
that.
system. So Jacques Panksepp is a famous neuroscientist that has studied human emotion, mammalian emotion, really, and has categorized it into 7 different distinct categories. And when we are eliciting seeking, when we are eliciting curiosity, we are invoking play, we initiate the release of dopamine, the feel-good hormone, right?
Yeah.
And in the feel-good hormone being released, it is in the seeking that it is most activated. It's not necessarily in the receiving of the reinforcer.
Okay.
And if we think about that in human behavior, it's the hunt, or it's the seeking, or it's the adventure.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
That is most provocative and most exciting.
Yeah.
And when we get to the final goal or the reward, it's not a letdown there, but it's not quite as exciting as the journey to get there.
What's that about?
Right?
It's so true.
It's like looking for a new farm.
Right?
The excitement of looking for a new farm almost is more exciting than, okay, we've got the new farm and we're moving in.
Yeah. Especially more exciting than like the heavy legwork of getting
That's right.
And it comes after the getting the new farm.
That's right.
Right. But yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, the opposite to that is eliciting fear.
Of course, because then there isn't seeking, I'm imagining.
There is no more seeking. There is now escape.
Yeah.
There is avoidance and escape.
Yeah.
And that is a release of cortisol in the body.
Of course, yeah. There's a stress response.
It's a stress response. So the more cortisol then that is being released into the body, the more tension, the more fear, the more aversion, the possibility that your relationship with your horse is becoming poisoned. Because they are avoiding you, escaping you, not wanting to be ridden, not wanting to be caught, not wanting to be handled, not wanting to be touched.
Or groomed, or,
Goes on and on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've, both you and I, I'm sure, have seen many of those horses.
Many.
Out there.
Many.
That are just done with human connection as a general rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I worked with a pony last year who resorted to biting to keep people away from him.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That is a common behavior.
Very common.
And he, it was progressing in aggression to the point where people would come anywhere near his stall and he would lunge out over the stall door to bite.
Yeah.
And so the human response then is to hit the horse.
Of course, to punish,
To punish the horse. But what you're actually doing is reinforcing the behavior you don't want. So, that's really how punishment works. The more we punish, and again, there's so much scientific study done now in human and animal behavior, that punishment has tremendous fallout. It doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't teach the horse anything.
No, and you break the bond.
And you break the trust.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and oftentimes I would assume that, we were having a little conversation before we got on today about this idea of human perspective and how, we each come through a different lens. And so the behaviors that we believe are punishable, so to speak, would be different for every human in relation to every horse. So, it's like, it just becomes a bog really of where just, you can't really win in that space.
You don't win, the horse doesn't win.
No.
And it just turns into this cycle of escalation until these minor annoying behaviors now become dangerous behaviors.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, wow. And then, I'm sure like this is work, you're talking mammalian and but with horses in particular, because of their size, it's like we do have to, not that a dog like Riley couldn't do a lot of harm if in the wrong hands, but, with horses, if they do want to be dangerous, or and then not that they would ever want to be dangerous, but they feel that they have to be dangerous.
If they're being threatened,
right?
If they're feeling unsafe, then they'll two things will happen. If you're eliciting fear, the horse is naturally going to want to escape or avoid. They'll do that far more quickly before they'll go into a defensive behavior. Defense is not a natural repertoire in their species-specific behavior. They don't go to attack first. They flight. They're flight animals. And I lost my train of thought. Yeah,
so punishment. So when we're in the punishment, that space, and they're actually turning into defensive creatures, what's happening there?
Yeah. So as they're turning into defensive creatures then, and the punishment continues, inevitably what happens is they begin to shut down. They disconnect, they dissociate, they shut down, and that is often mistaken for a horse that is very obedient.
Yes, the robot horse.
The robot horses.
Yes.
The automated robot horses with a very dull look in their eye.
Yeah.
That is actually a case of what we call conditioned or learned helplessness.
That's learned helplessness. That makes so much sense. And I see these horses a lot. You know, I'm sure we both do, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, they're so good. Look at how they don't react to anything, you know, and it's like they're gone. Yeah. They're just totally gone.
They're completely shut down. And from a behavioral science perspective, what has actually happened is they have learned that their species-specific behavior has not worked in their environment. Their sense of choice and control has been taken away. Their handler has become unpredictable.
I was going to say, that's a big one.
Their environment is now unpredictable.
This sounds vaguely familiar as far as, you know, what we would consider to be an abusive environment for people. Hey?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so when that person, that animal learns that their behavior has no effect on the environment, they stop trying.
Got it.
They stop trying, they stop initiating, they stop engaging, because it's far safer to remain stationary and quiet than it is to express anything.
That makes my heart break, hey?
I know, doesn't it? I know. I've shed many tears in my research.
Oh my God, I can only imagine. And that, for me, I mean, I see these horses all the time, and I'm always like, but that just really clarifies what's actually happening physiologically, and that helps me on a number of levels, because I've even seen it, you know, one of the things I got really curious about, I'd seen a video of someone laying down a horse, and I was like, you know, just like, oh God. But I went, gosh, I want someone to speak to the physiology of this, because I'm seeing what's happening in this horse, and I know on a more anatomy level and you know, a survival instinct trauma level, but that just so hones in on what's actually going on for them, and how that connection with, you know, people that are in abusive scenarios, and any animal that's in a scenario like that, they just go, okay, nothing that I do
is working. Yeah. So I'm going to give up.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, that can happen over periods of time. Yeah. Or it can happen instantaneously, where the impact of trauma is so severe on that horse, like you were just describing, laying down a horse.
Ugh. So huge.
Laying down a horse
is like
and
dying.
Then standing on top of the horse and cracking a bullwhip or shooting off a rifle, or you know, we've all seen those videos, right? Yeah. And the misconception of that human to think that they have just created an obedient, compliant horse,
or a partner of some kind.
What they've actually done is they have just traumatized that animal.
Well, if we think of the physiology, especially of a prey animal, I mean, they literally, if a predator takes a horse down, they die inside. Their physiology says, I'm dying.
Yeah.
This is done. We're over. And that actually, they just break inside almost, right?
And fainting is one of those survival mechanisms where they just check out if they actually feel their life is coming to an end.
Absolutely.
And I've seen that before too, where a horse is so traumatized and terrified, they actually faint.
Yeah. They fall down.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Scary.
Okay.
Yeah, my God. Okay, we'll change the subject here, everybody. Sorry, I know that's intense, but I think it is really important for us to understand because, you know, as horse people and for you out there, you're gonna meet these horses, and so to understand a little more deeply what's going on for them, I think builds our compassion, empathy, and our ability to help. So
that's right.
Thanks for staying with us through that.
Yeah, you know, and we must have compassion and empathy to see this, but we also have to have the scientific skills.
Yeah.
To be able to know how, or at least the basic concepts, to know how to help the horse.
Yeah. And
change their association in learning.
Can we talk about that? How does one bring a horse back from robotdom?
Yeah, well, I've done it with several horses.
I bet you have.
Several of my own. I have a herd of 14.
Yeah.
And apart from the ones that were born on the farm, they've all come with varying degrees of needing rehabilitation and fear and anger. And it takes time.
Yeah.
Essentially creating what are known as the 3 F's. So forage, friends, and freedom.
Yeah, I know those 3 very well.
Yeah, so you set up the environment to support the horse to initiate and express her own behaviors.
Absolutely.
Now, let me just backtrack on that because some horses who have been boxed in a stall or a very confined space, I absolutely wouldn't recommend putting them in, you know, with a bunch of horses and giving them freedom.
Absolutely. I saw that with one of the mares I had here where she just didn't have the social skills available to her or
ability to cope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so it must be incremental.
Yeah.
Small steps incrementally that begin to build up her confidence and allow her to express herself.
Yeah. In ways that feel safe.
In ways that feel safe. And it's on the horse's timeline.
Totally. Yeah.
You can't push it beyond her own timeline or his own timeline.
Well, and I found it interesting with that. You know, I've seen that a number of times. I think the most profound for me was a mare that I had years ago, Dreamweaver, and
I remember Dream.
Yeah, and she was so traumatized by people. Had a really rough start to her life. First 18 years were very hard, and so when she came to me, I would classify it very, like, I think very realistically as she hated people. Yeah. And she wasn't mean about it. Yeah. She was just like, I just don't want anything to do with you. And it was actually my first time where I did any like clicker training because it was the only thing that she could handle. And she had a very low spectrum for, my screw ups, essentially. Right. She just couldn't deal with human error. Yes. and any kind of negative feedback at all. And so it was huge for me too, to see. And I remember her when she started to seek. I remember that because she got so excited about, I think it was like touching her nose or her foot to something. She was so good at clicker training. She was very curious and interested, and she started to seek. And I remember, because I couldn't ride her for a really long time, and after I started clicker training and doing that work, she came up to the fence one day, and I never even seen Diva do this, and my friend was sitting on the fence who wasn't a rider, and Dream came up and basically said to her, will you get on my back? And she took her for a tour on her back, no lead rope, no halter, no anything, around the paddock, so safe, like, and it was her choice and it was her timing. And I just was standing there bawling. It's like, you know, realizing
her faith in humans had been restored.
God, it was such a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
And after that, she told me, she said, all right, I'm ready for my heart person. Yeah. And she started, you know, basically like haunting my friend Carmen's sessions with me. Yeah. And then I put her on, she's been in Hope ever since. 6 years or 7 years now they've been together, and totally amazing partnership, right? So
the essential elements that you gave Dream and that horses need are choice in their learning, control in their environment,
absolutely,
and for their handler to be consistently predictable.
And I only
you provide your horse with those 3 elements, you will see amazing things.
Oh, I remember one time we were out on the trail and I was ponying her, and the rope went around the tree, so the rope went out of my hand. And this was the time that I knew she started heading for home, and I clicked, and she went, what? She turned around and walked towards me, and I was like, it was an amazing moment.
That conditioned reinforcer, being a clicker, whatever it is that you choose, becomes a very, very powerful teaching tool. Not to be abused or misused.
Totally.
Because you have conditioned your horse that when they hear that sound,
there's good stuff coming.
Good stuff is happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff is happening.
It was really cool. So
and it's so powerful because we can shift our horses from being these very linear thinkers of just A, B, C, you know, and staying within such a confined approximation of what they offer because they're afraid to go outside of those lines, to being these amazing creative puzzle solvers. Amazing. Some of the behaviors I see in my own horses of expressing themselves and trying different things because there's no fear.
They don't fear they're gonna get something wrong.
There's no fear of being punished. So I can shape a complex behavior in a very, very short period of time. With some of my really savvy learners.
Amazing. And I'm sure there's building blocks to that, right?
Of course there is.
Working up to that.
Of course there is. No, teaching a new behavior, and so as a handler, what we need to develop is an impeccable and keen sense of observation. Yes, because your timing needs to be bang on. Your observation, your timing, and your rate of your reinforcer to the horse.
Got it.
Needs to be bang on.
Right.
And to not mix the quadrants of operant conditioning. So here's another example. We'll go back to the mounting block example.
Do it.
Riley.
Oh, it's right in the mouth.
Making your face again. To like our conversation, can you feel the energy here? It's so much fun.
He's like, I love positive reinforcement. Mom brings truth on walks, and it's amazing.
Okay, so here's how we misunderstand the use of quadrants. So if we are using positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement at the same time, we're creating conflict and confusion.
Absolutely.
So here's an example. My horse comes to the mounting block. I'm just teaching her to come to the mounting block. I've got a whip in one hand, and I'm tap, 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 tap on her outside hip. Asking her to move away from the pressure. It's actually punishment. Right. That's not pressure. That's actually...
Right.
Because punishment is the addition of a stimulus.
Right.
So if I'm adding an uncomfortable stimulus to my horse, even if it's like tapping, it is annoying, it's irritating.
It's something they don't want.
They do not want it, but they haven't figured out the correct answer yet. So what I have seen is horses become inverted in their back and hollowed, head up, ears pinned, but they know you have food rewards on you. Right. So the conflict in that horse's mind is, my instinct is to leave. But there's a reinforcer there. And so the handler using those quadrants inappropriately is creating confusion, conflict. She's unpredictable.
And stress.
And stress in her horse. And she may get the right behavior,
Yeah.
Right? She may get the horse moving over, so the horse moves her hip over towards the mounting block, and then you reinforce her with a food treat.
Right.
Well, again, it's come from a place of confusion.
Yeah. So what would be an ideal way to do something like that?
Target train her.
Okay.
Target her to move her hip to your hand as you stand at the mounting block.
Got it.
Yeah. And so you would start that behavior literally by placing your hand on her hip.
Yeah.
And sounding the bridge signal.
Yeah.
Which we'll just say today is a
click.
clicker.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you click and you reinforce. And then through successive approximation.
So you take your hand away a little bit.
A tiny, tiny, tiny bit.
Okay.
And even if she shifts her weight or takes a breath.
Totally. And it's a little bit.
It can almost be invisible.
Yeah.
But that's her trying to figure out the right answer.
Yeah.
She's not going to give you, the full, well, that's not true. She might. She might. But chances are she's trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then again, you celebrate these approximations.
Yeah. Totally.
I love this. Dr. Susan Friedman talks about this all the time. Celebrate approximations. Those little gestures that your animal is giving you to puzzle solve, and you can see them thinking. Yeah. Those are moments of pure joy.
Right. Absolutely.
So you reinforce her and reinforce her and reinforce her. And then you move it away a little bit more.
Yep.
And now she's starting to make the associations.
It's like, hey.
Yeah, she's starting to figure out the connection. When I move my hip and I touch your hand, that sound goes off, a reinforcer appears.
Got it.
And so then when it is, general rule of thumb is 80% accuracy of that happening, then you can put it on cue and you can add a verbal cue to it. Simple verbal cue would be hip, your hand goes out, you say the word, your horse moves her hip right to your hand. You reinforce.
Very nice.
That's what my horses do.
Yeah.
And even walking to the mountain block, the cue for them now is line up, and wherever I am in the arena, and I say that word, line up, or those two words, they'll go to the mounting block and they'll line up and they'll wait for me.
Right. Amazing.
And then I stand on the mounting block, and if I need her to adjust her position a little bit, either a hip target or a shoulder target, whatever it is, she remains stationary, moves her body, adjusts accordingly, knows that her reinforcer is coming. I can slip on her back. She remains stationary because then the next cue is forward.
Right. He's like, I don't go forward until I get.
That's right.
Until I get
There's
what
no
I want.
forward cue. Then I remain stationary.
Totally. Wow.
So it just becomes this progressive, beautiful game. And it's all based in play. And interestingly, the dopamine release happens in the human equally as it does in the animal.
Wow, so that's been studied.
That has been studied.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So there's an enjoyment level. Because how many times do we get into this, literally conflict with our horses, right? Where we're like, I need you to do this. And they're like, I don't want to do this.
Or I don't understand.
Or I don't get it. And then we're like, why don't you get it? And there's this... I'm going to put communication in quotations that ensues.
Because we don't speak the same language.
Exactly.
And we can't expect the horse to understand our language. We need to understand theirs. And the principles and practices of behavior and learning are universal.
Right.
They, from the most simple organism to the CEO of a major company.
Absolutely.
We all learn the same way.
Yeah.
And essentially we're drawn to pleasure and we avoid displeasure.
Go away from pain. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if we just hone into that one simple concept, your horse is going to be drawn to pleasure, to feeling good.
Yeah.
It's going to avoid displeasure and pain and discomfort and annoyance.
Well, really what makes you a great partner to them is that you actually help them relax.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like when they spend time with you, they feel good.
Yeah. they feel good and they feel relaxed. And you know, when we're working with horses in more advanced levels of dressage, and we see these poor horses trying to move through tension, I mean, the body just breaks down so quickly.
Oh, I've seen it happen.
Right?
I've worked on $200,000 horses
Yeah.
from Europe that are like, okay, this horse is going to be in a field in 6 months,
Right,
with a, you know, some
Right.
sort of injury that'll probably put them out for the rest of their lives.
exactly.
Their body can't handle that kind of stress
Yeah.
and tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the force and the pressure of that training
Yeah.
and the expectation
Yeah.
for it to be done in such a short period of time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The body is not designed to sustain that kind of endurance.
Well, and we've, you know, I've had this conversation with, I think, 2 or 3 other, you know, people on the podcast about age, right? Like really working with right timing with horses. You have babies on the property, or not really babies anymore, but you know, they're you know, coming up and coming, but you know, within this behavioral model, what would you say is like right timing to, you know, obviously you can begin with the little stuff, but,
Absolutely.
you know, right, like getting on their backs and things, a very different matter.
Very, very different. And I think it's going to be individual.
Yeah.
You know, the horse is really going to let you know.
Yeah.
When she's ready. From a physiological perspective, I mean, I have my Frisian mare Shima is coming up to 5.
Yeah, I was going to say she must be 4 or 5. So yeah,
she'll be 5 in June. And I haven't gotten on her back yet.
Yeah, I wondered. Yeah. And for you, is that you're just not feeling she's quite there?
We are progressively working towards it. And she's now standing stationary at the mounting block.
Yep.
And I'm just really taking my time.
Yeah, why not, right?
Because I want it to happen completely through relaxation. Yep. Not a moment of tension or uncertainty or apprehension in her mind or her body.
Totally. That
says, oh, not yet.
Yeah.
You know, if she's saying not yet, then she is dictating the learning.
Absolutely.
I can't dictate it for her.
No, she
to
needs
be a trusting partner.
I was going to say it has to be consensual. She needs to be, you know, in that space of feeling ready. And I think so often within our industry,
we want things done fast.
Absolutely, it's like we got a timeline. Yeah. I got money to make and bills to pay. Yeah. You know, I've got to get this, you know, whatever 2-year-old, 3-year-olds like up and going. Yeah. In a timing that is very, very outside of their natural timeline, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, their bones aren't even formed until what, 5?
4 or 5. With the more drafty breeds, it can be up to 6 or 7. Yeah. Yeah.
So why would we place that undue strain and pressure on our horses?
Yeah.
That end up with, they're in pain, and then they end up with physiological discomfort and imbalance.
Oh my goodness!
And, you know, they're carrying their own weight and figuring out their own balance, and then we put on a rider's weight on the back, and now we
generally
expect them to
imbalanced weight.
Yeah, and we're imbalanced riders.
Yes. And then
even
the best of us are imbalanced riders.
Yeah, and we expect our horses to carry us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
It
does not set the horse up for success.
Absolutely. Yeah. To build that strength and stamina and relaxation and balance. Yeah. You know, that's going to bring us into a space where we can actually get in the saddle and we do have a horse. You know, I want to, you know, it's one of my things in this podcast to bust some myths, right? Yeah. Because, you know, we see these things where it's like we think that we have to, I mean, look at even the terminology, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm going to break my... Right. You know, my colts.
We need to do away with these
dinosaur
myths.
These sorts of, like, where it's like, do we still say that? Like, you know, and that sense that, like, I've seen horses being started that are so happy to be started, that are ready, that are like, hey, yeah, like, they've been watching their friends do it, they're interested, they're curious, you know, and then it just happens, and it's like so organic and easy. There's no stress. And I think we've seen all these, maybe we've seen cowboy movies or whatever, where, you know, it's like laying the horse down and doing this and doing that. That is not...
Or riding out the buck.
Right? Riding out the buck.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's called flooding.
That's exactly. So we were going to talk about flooding. So why don't we talk about that now? And there's one more myth I want to get to in a second here.
I love this. Debunk these myths,
Let's
right?
do
These
it.
dinosaur myths that just need to, oh my God, we could go on forever about the myths in the equine industry.
Gosh, yes.
Even this whole premise of leadership.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, guess what, folks? There is not a single leader in a horse herd. They are a cooperative hierarchy.
Yeah.
There is not this whole natural horsemanship perspective of you need to be the leader of your horse.
Yeah.
It's about partnership.
Yeah.
Not
Absolutely.
about
and creating safe, like a
safe
safe partnership. Absolutely. So let's talk about flooding, because you mentioned this before, and I think I kind of get the concept, but I'd love to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Let me give you an example, because I saw this at the main event and I had to walk away.
Okay. So, like, what, the trainer challenge?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, many of us walked away, actually.
I'm sure. What? It's not good to start a horse in 3 days?
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah, so we take a big blue scary tarp. Right? And
with a horse, so just to give you a premise, these horses are straight out of the field, unstarted, and they're in a massive building with people everywhere.
They're in a round pen.
Yeah.
Some of the sessions were in round pens with people on bleachers up to 10 feet high circling the round pen.
Yeah. With a big roof over top of the space, and
bright lights and
lots of sound.
Lots of,
It's usually near all the food carts. So really different smells and away from their friends.
Crazy things. Yeah. All kinds of crazy things.
Yeah.
And so this cowboy was speaking on behalf of his horse and saying to the crowd, look at, how still the horse was as he was bringing this tarp closer and closer and closer and closer to the horse. The horse did not have any choice. No control over her movement. Was on a very short shank.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
rope halter.
I can't remember. I think it might have been a rope halter. Yeah. So
lots of pressure.
Yeah. Lots of pressure. Yeah. And a saddle on.
Okay, send a saddle on.
So the saddle was already on.
Yeah.
And I think this was the end of day 1.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so the flooding process is really not allowing your horse to have any options in the face of this very scary stimuli.
Yeah.
So for this horse, this big blue tarp was scary.
Oh, yeah.
And as the handler is bringing it closer to the horse, and now it's on top of the horse, you could see, in the dog training community, we call this whale eye, where you can just see the whites of the horse's eyes. The nostrils are flared. She is way over emotional threshold.
Oh, yeah. She's well in the freak out zone.
She is in the freak out zone. Absolutely. Every muscle in her body is so tense.
Hence the stillness, because she's just in major deer freeze response.
Yep, she's in deer freeze response. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. And she tries to flee a couple of times, but he doesn't allow it to happen, right? Yeah. The pressure of that rope and keeping her still, she cannot move her feet.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's flooding. That's flooding.
Scary.
And repeating that with every new stimuli brought into that horse's environment, over time, she learns to shut down.
Of course, because it's trauma.
Yeah, it leads to conditioned helplessness.
Yep.
Yeah. So when we flood our horses with stimuli that is scary to them, aversive to them, and we do it too fast, we're not setting them up for success. We're setting them up to be fearful.
Oh, absolutely.
It actually creates a much more unconfident horse when we do it that way.
I agree. That happened to me with Diva when we first started, because I had this agenda and wanted to do these things, and so I was like, we're going to go on these group rides. This is what we're going to do. Of course, she couldn't handle it, especially when we'd meet up with a stream or something really scary on that ride.
Yep.
And then of course she would you know, lose her mind a little.
Yep.
And then I would go into, you know, sometimes punishment mode. Sometimes I would get stressed. Usually it was because I was with such a big group. Now I feel judged,
right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I realized after a while she got worse and worse and worse.
Yes.
And eventually I just thankfully came to my senses and went, what am I doing here? And I went right back to the beginning, and I was like, we go out with one horse. We go on trails that she knows. Like we, you know, if we're going to do trail riding, but it was like, I realized, you know, she was so flooded in those moments that became so aversive to her. Like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to be a part of that.
And what happens, you know, as humans, when we become flooded by aversive stimuli or overwhelmed, we shift back into the mammalian brain, right? We go right into the amygdala, which is in charge of all of our emotions.
And reactive.
And we become reactive.
And actually
the frontal
dangerous.
cortex shuts down.
Totally.
We can no longer think clearly.
Yes.
So when you're flooding your horse,
they can't make decisions.
It's physiologically impossible for them to think through and problem solve the correct answer.
Or
they
learn.
Cannot do it. Or
they
learn.
Cannot learn. And that's something that's, I think, really important to I won't use the word stress because that's not, but to highlight in this podcast is this sense that you cannot learn or adapt from a place of stress or fear. And that's just bottom line stuff.
It's just another learning principle.
That's just it. And so when we take our horse into punishment, and this is the other myth that I wanted to debunk, actually. This leads into this perfectly. Okay, so this is one I've heard since I was literally this big. You know, I'm let's say it's like 6, but is give an inch, take a mile. Okay, so, and I still hear it. I still hear it from people where they're like, well, I can't let this go.
Yeah.
I can't stop, you know, reprimanding this behavior, or I can't let this behavior continue. And, you know, I would love to hear your perspective on that, because I think that, you know, that sense of like, I gotta ride it out, you know, I gotta get back. Like, how many of us had instructors that were like, get back on that horse?
Right. Yeah. So what, didn't we all?
Right.
And it's still happening today.
It's still happening.
Yeah.
You know, get it done. I had an instructor that would just scream at me, top of her lungs, get it done. The horse would be losing their mind. Right.
And of course you are too.
And of course
you can't make good decisions.
Not at all. You know, the danger zone goes way up there. So,
Yeah, so, you know, you need to backtrack take many, many steps back, because if the behavior has escalated to that point, then it has built up over time and has digressed or progressed, really, to that place.
Or
regressed. To that place of being almost dangerous.
Absolutely.
So where did it begin? So, you know, let's use another example, trailer loading.
Okay, yeah, great one.
Right?
Yeah.
So your horse doesn't load into the trailer, and you think the problem is starting at the trailer?
No.
Probably the beginning of this problem has started with how the horse has been taught to accept a halter and to lead.
Totally.
You know, you need to really, and as a behaviorist, this is what I would do. Create a functional assessment. And so looking at the initial problem behavior and then backtracking from there. How is the horse housed? Look at the antecedent arrangement of their environment first. Fix that. Yeah. Start there. Because
that's creating underlying stress every day.
That's where the stress,
Right.
Is the horse getting enough food?
Yeah.
Right? And then looking at the training practices that are happening with the horse. Loading into the trailer is the end result of a long line.
Well, there's so many
variables
that come together,
possibilities that could be contributing to that.
Yeah.
And so by the time the horse is being asked to load into a trailer, there's just this buildup of fear and anxiety and stress that explodes at that point, and then it's met with more punishment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So now you already have the stressed horse and you're applying punishment. And oh my God, I heard, I'm mentoring right now with an equine behaviorist in England, and she was telling me about this horse that they were trying to load, and they resorted to cattle prods to get the horse in.
Yeah.
So you can just imagine the fallout of that, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's wild. And I think that sense of, one of the things I love about speaking about this stuff is that, for a lot of us, this is, I don't want you all out there to feel guilty about this stuff. This is also our learning process. So I really want to share that is like, Michelle and I came from very traditional background.
Absolutely.
And
if it's been done wrong,
yeah,
I've done
right,
it.
Exactly. Me too. And we still make mistakes. Hi, Parker. And cats are in the house. And so I really want to just put that out there. This is not around creating a feeling of guilt or shame,
not at all.
But it's more this like, let's look at some different options and let's look at where we might, have beliefs that are potentially outdated about our horses and that really aren't working for them or for us anymore. And how do we sort of shake these free? And I know that Michelle and I are going to have more chats. I can feel that. She's going to drive her 4 minutes down the road, and I'm going to sit here and speak more to this and dive deeper into this work, because it is really, really helpful for us. I want to, honor your time and the time of the people tuning in, and we'll try to keep it under an hour for everybody. But I just wanted to ask Michelle, any closing thoughts here today? Anything else that just is really like you feel important to share? I'm sure there's lots.
There's tons.
Really like good golden nuggets.
Yeah. I think if we choose to approach our teaching with our horses from a positive reinforcement perspective, then we abide by a principle that is known as LIMA.
Okay. And
LIMA stands for least intrusive, minimally aversive. So let me just read you a little thing about the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants that I am currently going through the accreditation process to be a recognized behavior consultant. This is what they say about LIMA. LIMA requires that trainers and behavior consultants use the least intrusive, minimally aversive techniques likely to succeed in achieving a training or behavior change. Objective with minimal risk of producing adverse side effects. It's also a competence criterion requiring that trainers and behavior consultants be adequately trained and skilled in order to ensure the least intrusive and aversive procedure that it uses.
Okay.
So, having said that, imagine, and obviously nobody can see this chart that I have, but Dr. Susan Friedman, her website is called Behavior Works, and she is one of the world's recognized leading behaviors and trainers out there.
Great. So you're all hearing this is a great resource.
Absolutely great resource. I've had the pleasure of working with her personally, and she is just a massive wealth of information. So when she talks about LIMA as a hierarchy of behavior change procedures. So imagine yourself driving down a highway and you have all these possible turnoffs. And when we're talking about behavior change, first of all, we want to consider what our horse's health is. Their health, their nutrition, and their physical setting. That's our first turnoff. Look at those things first.
Right.
Get back on the highway, continue on down the road. Our next possible turnoff is look at the antecedent arrangements in our horse's environment. What are the things that could be causing them stress in their environment? Right. Remove them.
Yeah.
Change them. Create an environment where your horse and you are set up for success.
Yeah.
And then we want to proceed into our teaching with positive reinforcement. Elicit that curiosity and that seeking and that play drive. Learning happens faster. Behavior change is much, much faster. And trust is built bond is built, connection is built, communication opens, lateral thinking begins.
Okay.
The next step down the highway is if we are dealing with a challenging behavior and an unwanted behavior, it's very difficult to actually stop that behavior.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to stop an unwanted behavior. However, we can teach our horse an alternative behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So back to my original example, your horse can't kick the stall door and have his feet on the ground at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
The alternative behavior is to teach your horse to plant 4 feet on the ground.
And then it gets good stuff.
And then good things happen,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So think of an alternative. Don't think, I want my horse to stop that. Think, what is it you want your horse to do instead?
I like it. Okay.
And then after that, and be careful, because this is where the caution sign comes in. Because this is where we could go into negative reinforcement, negative punishment, which is kind of like a timeout that can elicit frustration and potentially aggression in our horses. So we have to be very careful of that. Or extinction in a behavior, where we're trying to stop a behavior. We want to be, have our tools in place and know how to use them correctly if we're going to take that turn off.
Okay. Okay.
And then the last turn off is added punishment.
Right. Right.
Which
when we get really stressed, or that's where we.
So imagine a big stop sign and a barrier there on the road.
So this is where you lose your temper, so to speak.
This is where
Okay.
All stops at that point. Drop everything.
Never worth it.
That's not worth it.
Never worth it.
Put your horse away. Go outside. Have a cup of tea or a glass of wine or
a hot tub or something. Yeah, and I think that really speaks that goes back to that give an inch, take a mile, because sometimes we get stuck in right with our horses, and we're like, I gotta make this happen. I gotta stay at it until it changes. Don't
stop.
We're just busting that myth up.
Dust it.
It does not help. It does not make it better. If you just go inside, have your glass of wine, put your horse away, come back to it, you're actually going to be in a better space.
Some of my training sessions are only 5 minutes long.
Yeah, right.
And if I can feel myself feeling a little tense, stop.
Yeah. It's not worth it.
It is not worth it.
Never. Being someone who has a feisty little temper. Diva's always like, excuse me, just take that away. I'm like, you're right. This is just, okay, going to have a bath and some chocolate. Thank you. Right? Awesome. So I want to close up here, but Michelle, how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way?
So I am going through this entirely new branding and marketing
so it's
process. I have a team of people creating a new website for me, and a center. We're actually going to open up a Canadian premier center of positive reinforcement training and equine behavior.
Yeah.
But that's in the works.
So how do they get a hold of you right now?
So probably Facebook.
Okay.
Spiritgate Farm.
Spiritgate Farm on
Facebook.
And
I have a closed group called the Positive Horse Academy.
Okay.
That people can ask to join. And those are probably
perfect
right now the two
awesome.
Two
and those will be on the resource page as well, to get in touch with Michelle. I want to thank you so much. We will continue to be continued.
This is fun. There's so much to talk about.
So thank you. Thank you for all tuning in out there. I know that time is precious, so we appreciate you spending some time. Maybe you're mucking your paddocks or doing other things, and tune in next time. We're gonna have there's lots of great stuff down the road, and I will be talking with Michelle again. We've got lots to speak about still. So
great.
All right.
Thanks, Alexa.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.